Good grief, I cannot believe this thing is now 10 years old. That is just insane. It feels like I bought this thing just a couple of years ago, man. And like, I know we have better things now, but I remember this being the big thing for Nintendo, and then they pissed their pants a year after.
Wii jokes.
But we won't talk about that now.
Well, since this thing is about a decade old now, I guess it's a perfect time to talk about my history with it.
Let's talk about the history of the handheld first, before we get to the personal stuff. Nintendo was talking about a successor for the extremely successful Nintendo DS in late 2009, with the late Satoru Iwata talking about how it'll have a motion sensor, with rumors talking about it having more horsepower, obviously, but also talking about it using stereoscopic 3D. Nintendo was always experimenting with 3D technology since the Famicom days, with the most popular example being the ever so highly praised Virtual Boy. Hell, even the GameCube was going to have some 3D support, though it never came to be. At E3 2010, Nintendo unveils the 3DS, not too long after the DSi XL. The timing was more so because of the rumors and new leaks, since Nintendo likes to keep all their secrets in a tight safe. Makes you wonder if the Switch Pro rumors are even warranted with that context. And the tech wasn't all that was shown off. We saw the return of Kid Icarus with Uprising, thanks to Brawl creating some conversations, alongside Animal Crossing New Leaf, Mario Kart 7, Star Fox 64 3D, and Ocarina Type 3D, with Kingdom Hearts, Metal Gear Solid 3, Resident Evil, and Street Fighter 4 coming to the system. We talk about Witcher 3 being a crazy port job. This thing got the new Street Fighter at launch, and from what I heard, it's actually a pretty good port. Say what you will, that's impressive as hell. And speaking of the launch, the base model went available in late February in Japan and late March everywhere else, and sold for $250 US. Phew. Okay, that's a bit much for a gimmicky handheld with a lackluster launch catalog. Nintendogs plus Cats, Pilot Rings Resort, Steel Diver, and that was Nintendo's lineup. Though Ridge Racer and Street Fighter 4 were notable releases, and if you wanted Rayman 2 on the go, at least it's better than the DS port. I didn't actually get my 3DS until June of 2013. I was trying to save up for one for the past year leading to it, but with no job and living in a small town, it was a slow burn towards the sale. Also didn't help I was buying other games for consoles I owned, so I didn't get too bored. However, my mom saw a Facebook post about someone selling their 3DS for $100, and since this was a week after my birthday, I got quite a bit of money for it, so we decided to go and check it out. The guy let me take a look at the console, and it was in pretty good condition, so we made the deal. And when I got home, I looked through everything it had. There were these AR cards, which I used a grand total of once and just stopped. Wasn't even a full set, but it's like I gave a damn. What I did give a damn about was what was inside the 3DS. I don't think I'll ever settle a deal as good as this ever again. So it had the typical apps, like Face Raiders. This was pretty much a tech demo for the camera, which, may I say, is so disgusting. Maybe because I've used so many top-notch cameras since then, but yeah, no, this is not high quality at all. You can make some 3D photos with it. Not like you can show them outside the damn thing, so who gives a shit? Yeah, Face Raiders was an interesting built-in app. It was kind of this space shooter that didn't really have any substance to it, but it was something to chew on if you had it at launch. But speaking of the camera, I looked through the photo and sound apps, and they had some more mature stuff on there, and that's all I can say there. There was download mode. Never used it because I didn't know a single other person that had a 3DS. And there was Nintendo Zone, which I have never been able to find a hotspot for it, even places that were supposed to be hotspots. But the best built-in app has got to be the Street Pass games. There was Puzzle Swap and Find Me at launch, and yeah, I dug Puzzle Swap because it was so fun to grab the puzzle pieces from random passerbys, or you can use the play coins you accumulated whenever you used the 3DS as a pedometer. And damn dude, these photos were freaking fantastic! Mostly based on games they were selling at the time, but damn, these were great, especially with the 3D on. I wish I could travel again. Find Me was a weird little RPG with consumable party members, you could say, who were based on people you pass with Street Pass. Or you can use the play coins to get these little dog dudes. These guys are freaking adorable. Each trip didn't last long though, neither of the games did. They were just a thing to check after you see the green light on top of the system. But they were fun regardless. And there were more, but I didn't really use them that much because when I got them downloaded, I kind of stopped caring. I think they were released around the NX hype, so I wasn't able to give them a good shot. But that was only the beginning, as the dude also had a whole collection of downloaded games, including Push Mode, Bionic Commando, Kid Icarus 3D, Xevious 3D, Pokédex 3D. Okay. There were a couple demos being Rayman Origins and Mutant Mudds. And last but certainly not least, the Ambassador program along with every game it came with it. There was The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords, which was interesting. And then there were the 10 NES and 10 Game Boy Advance games. The latter of which were never released otherwise because they never got them to work properly. Okay, Nintendo, you do you. Since I played every type of virtual console release on this thing, I've noticed an interesting exception to the rest. You can't put GBA games in sleep mode, similar to how you exit a DS game. Because of that, you can't use save states, which is quite puzzling compared to the rest. So I guess that's what they meant, especially when the majority of GBA games were pretty lengthy games that would benefit from all of that. But I mean, if you couldn't get those kinds of games on here, why not just have these 10 games just available to everyone else? It really couldn't hurt, guys. But yeah, thanks to all these games on the console, I didn't have to worry about running out of games. Though a good chunk of them were pretty short and shallow. Like, who frequently plays NES Golf and Wrecking Crew? I thoroughly enjoyed Push Mode, one of the best puzzle games I've ever played. I know people don't like the original Kid Icarus, but I really like it. It's probably because it's based on the Famicom disk system, but I'd probably put this on my top 5 on the NES. Nah, the GBA games were my jam though. I got into Fire Emblem with Sacred Stones, F-Zero with Maximum Velocity, and Zelda with the Minish Cap, though I never beaten it. But you know which games I want to talk about. Wario, baby! WarioWare was so wacky with the silliest scenarios of any Nintendo game, and Wario Land 4 was a great game from my childhood, so of course this was a nice treat. Okay, in all seriousness. Metroid and Metroid Fusion were the start of a beautiful obsession, with Fusion being the one I've played the most out of the GBA games. Except maybe Yoshi's Island. You ever attempted to complete this version? It's frickin' hell. But these two games alone helped me through my senior year of high school, waiting on the bus rides and filling in lunch hours, and during the grueling test days. But those were not the first games I played on the thing. I had a few DS games at the time, and I just had to test it with them.
So take a wild guess. What was the first game that I actually played on this little handheld? Yeah, I was surprised too.
I mean, I remember not minding the game at the time, but really? Okay, maybe I guess it was just a quick moment. I'm sure I played a little more interest. No, I didn't. Was I just losing my marbles after junior year of high school? Well, no, my high school days more than likely. Thankfully played Sonic Classics Collection after that. It's not the best way to play the classic trilogy, but it's fine. First time I played Sonic 2 and 3, so it holds some sentiments to me. Also played Pokemon Ranger and WarioWare Touch, and apparently I played Soul Silver, even though I remembered never playing it personally. Maybe I let my brother borrow it. And before I got my first physical 3D game, I splurged on demos from the eShop. I always loved how the eShop looked and sounded. Wonderful music, with occasional music from current games at the time. And the overall layout, sleek, quick, and downloading a game was a treat. You could download them while in sleep mode, but screw that, I wanted to see the data literally plop into the game icon. I was very easy to please, and I'll be honest, I still am. Oh, damn it. Let's see, Rayman Origins was a return to a series I had vague memories with. Mutant Mugs wasn't exactly my cup of tea, but I can't show you because I didn't have any uses for the Blade thing. Why did Nintendo limit uses for demos? That's just annoying. I didn't complete the Rayman demo though, I swear I did. Either way, one of the games I remember somewhat fondly was this game called Crazy Construction. It was so simple to a point that I never needed to buy it, but it was so wild. It was just kind of this fun, wacky construction game with these random things that you wouldn't really use for construction. This was just a weird game, and I love it. Castlevania Lords of Fates. I heard from plenty of people that if I liked Metroid, I should try out the Castlevania games. And this was my first game, and boy, I wish it weren't. This game was so dull and so boring, I just didn't bother with the rest. Alternative Blade was a better Metroidvania experience, but that's not really saying much. I didn't get much out of it. And for some reason it got a port and a sequel to modern platforms. Alright. There was Rhythm Thief and Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm, with Tatsumiku later on, which were all very competent rhythm games. Resident Evil Revelations. Damn, this was actually my introduction to Resi, and it was freaking terrifying for a handheld game. No reason to play it on the 3DS, but it was really nice for the console. Fire Emblem Awakening, Mario & Luigi Dream Team, Mario Golf World Tour, and Phoenix Wright Dual Destinies were all great demos for games I didn't get to immediately. Hell, I only got Mario Golf and the entire Phoenix Wright series in the past couple of years. But with that said, full games. The first game I actually got for the system was Luigi Mansion Dark Moon. I loved the original to death, so I wanted to grab this game when I got the money in September. I loved the game, even more than the original. The humor and charm were on point, going through the imaginative mansions with varied themes. But you may have heard loved and not love. I still enjoy it, but there was just so much repetition and stopping it to a point where it just became irritating. And in hindsight, I wish I got Star Fox 64 instead, since the game actually skyrocketed in price shortly after because of how limited it was. Actually, Uprising was probably a better choice too. I like the original, so would have been a nice addition. Ah well, hindsight is 2020. At least I got Solitaire soon after. That was something. So this is interesting. I'm using the activity log on the system for the script, and I don't have Pokemon Y on here. I was really excited for this game, since Pokemon Gen 5 were such brilliant games, and since it was going in 3D for the first time, I had to try it out. I got it a couple of weeks after it launched, and it was fine, I guess. It was the most disappointing game on the system. The world was stale, the rivals were bland, the new Pokemon left little impact, the art style was only okay, and the frame rate was cut in half when you had the 3D on. I'd show you footage, but I traded it in for Smash 4 back in 2014, and it hasn't really dropped in value. No way I'm getting this game for $40 now, it's barely worth $10 in my opinion. Despite that though, I got 400 hours into it if you can believe that. Only for the sole reason that I wanted my money's worth, so I went to fill out the Pokédex, which never happened, and I went shiny hunting, which was a pain in the ass. And the more and more I was playing it, the more and more I came to dislike it. Plus I wasn't able to buy any more games for the next couple of months, so that was another reason. The only other game I got was from Christmas, that being yeah, from one disappointment to another, but what makes this worse is that this was my first Paper Mario game, so it kinda tainted my overall opinion of the series. Even when I eventually got to the original, I mean, it was better, but before we go off topic, Sticker Star was so cryptic, so unnecessary, so lifeless. There were glimmers, but this game was so gross. And I was running out of games to play, so I just went and finished the game, and over time, I became a little less harsh, but I still don't really enjoy it. April of 2014, I got an eShop card, which I used to buy the first two Shantae games, Mighty Switch Force, Pokemon Battle Troze, and a DSi game called Magical Whip, and I played these games quite a bit. Okay, not Magical Whip, that was shallow, but Shantae was a lot of fun despite the issues it had. Mighty Switch Force was a fun little puzzle game, probably better than Pushmo actually. And Pokemon Battle Troze? Well, it was a lot better than the mainline game at least. I also dusted off Mario and Sonic at the 2010 Olympics and Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Okay, now I'm convinced I was either stupid or a masochist. Ah, here's the Smash demo. Like a lot of people, this demo attracted me pretty quickly, though the roster available didn't really get me jumping. I sucked at all 5 of these characters, but at the very least it was a fun time, enough to convince me to buy it. But not on the 3DS. Since everyone else was buying it on the Wii U, I got that version instead, which in hindsight was probably a bad decision, since I believe the 3DS version was much better. Funnily enough, I got this game for Christmas on the same year Ultimate came out. I have no idea why I asked for it that year specifically, and when I did, I smacked myself in the face because that means I had to add more to that Smash Bros. Video I made in early 2019. That video was a freaking mess, and I don't really like it. But I love this game. Smash 1 is fun as hell, Street Smash existed, and it has a more comprehensible Classic mode. Wii U Classic mode is steaming plastic garbage. It also feels faster than the Wii U game. Still not ultimate fast, but it's still more comfortable than its console counterpart, in my opinion. And ending 2014 was Skypiece and Kid Icarus 2. What a strange way to end. But to end things off, in October, Nintendo gave us themes to customize the home menu. Absolutely love this, and I did buy a few for myself. Okay, I only got the free stuff when the service came out, and then I bought a few when I had the money. 2015 was pretty bare, for me at least. Not only because I was still trying to find a job and getting small bits of money during yard work, but the 3DS was kind of a bit lacking in new releases, so I mostly burned through the new demos. Puzzles & Dragons and Super Mario Bros. Was a neat little demo, which also makes getting the full game trivial because of the unlimited uses. Plus, the content in the demo wasn't complex enough for me to buy the full game. I also played the demo of The Legend of the Dark Witch, which was actually pretty fun, yet pretty simple platformer. Fun enough that I actually bought all 3 games on the system. I'd recommend them. Pretty underrated if you ask me. At the end of November, I finally got a job at a thrift store, and once I got my first paycheck, I got the game Stella Glow. This was in the cornucopia of demos for the year, and I clicked with the game almost immediately. Despite the game being filled with anime tropes, it was a very engaging turn-based strategy game with a colorful cast of knights and singing witches, and thanks to that, it has an amazing soundtrack and sound design. It's even my most played game aside from Pokemon Y, but that was only because I wanted to play the Street Pass battles and replay the game in New Game Plus for multiple endings. I'll have to save this for a video of some sort. But on the other side of the spectrum, Chibi Robo Ziplash.
Oh lovely, even more disappointment.
This game is so boring. There is no sense of naturality or charm compared to the rest of the series. Even the last game, an AR game about taking pictures of random household objects, was a lot more interesting than this bland piece of metallic bread. But speaking of metal, I got a new 3DS and transferred everything from the original. Thank God, because the original shoulder button stopped working and the C-Stick's rubber was missing for some reason. And at least the info from the activity log transferred over. Only wish the Switch could do that. Actually, I wish the Switch had an activity log in general, and no, that doesn't count. And this is when we also got the release of Nintendo Badge Arcade, a free-to-play game that lets you fish for badges you can use for the home menu. Pretty cool stuff, and you can get a couple of tries every day, and maybe an extra if you use the training machine. But as a free-to-play game, you can just buy more tries. I am pathetic.
Now, despite me getting a job in 2016, I didn't really get a lot of games for the 3DS, mostly because I was saving money for this hunking piece of garbage. I mean, it doesn't really work now, but I got a lot of use out of it.
I got a couple of games though, like Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. I need to try it again, but I really kinda hated it at the time. Combat, exploration, character, all of it really boring. I also had those cardboard figures. Those were fun to make, but they were pretty fragile and they don't really exist anymore. Got Earthbound and Super Metroid on the 3DS when Super Nintendo games got in. First time playing Super Metroid and I absolutely enjoyed it to death. And I tried Earthbound for the first time, didn't really care for it. Only got past the first boss from what I remember. So around April is where I started getting more 3DS games. Codename Steam had some potential, but didn't click with me for some reason. Sega 3D Classics, I mean, what do you want me to think? I only played Puyo Puyo 2 like a disgusting Puyo Puyo fan I am. And the only Sonic game it had is Sonic 1. And I really don't like Sonic 1. I played Bravely Second before the original because it was pretty expensive at the time. And damn, it was a solid classic-styled RPG similar to the original Final Fantasy. Certainly more interesting than what Final Fantasy is doing nowadays. Oh man, I think this was where I got the capture card. If you were around during the Jayson Windmaster days. I'm sorry you dealt with that, but this was when I played Partners in Time for a Let's Play that never finished, since it actually stopped working in the middle of it. But during that time, I also played Planet Robobot for my 3rd review video on the channel.
Hello everyone, Jayson Windmaster. Hello everyone, Jayson Windmaster.
I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And you know what? I wanted to do the same with Federation Force being the first Metroid game since... well, that. But again, I had to send the 3DS back to Katsukity in order to repair it. Plus, I had no friends to play it with me because I was the only idiot to play it. I guess I'll talk about it when Prime 4 comes out in 2030. And there was Pokemon Moon, which I found generally okay. Better than the last mainline game, at least.
And between this and the release of the Nintendo Switch, there wasn't really much going on, so for the time being, I just went through all the games that I had burning through the backlog.
Yoshi's New Island, Super Mario 3D Land, Link Between Worlds, Kirby Triple Deluxe, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Professor Layton, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time 3D, Star Fox 3D, all three of those being much better than the original releases. Fire Emblem Fate, which was one of Nintendo's worst games on the system, Kid Icarus Uprising, and several others. 2016 was the best time to try them out. But once the Switch became available, the 3DS was still going strong. I'm actually shocked. They aimed at the Wii U with dead aim, but the 3DS just dodged every bullet until it got exhausted. During that time, there was Ever Oasis, which was such a nice little action RPG that got overshadowed by the Switch. Same with Fire Emblem Echoes, a great remake to a game that never left Japan, and it was pretty unique for the series. Hey, Pikmin was a Pikmin game, kind of. I screamed at excitement when they announced Samus Returns after announcing there was going to be a Prime 4, and I'll stand by this, it's still one of the best games in the series. You can say all you want about AM2R, that game is amazing as well, but I'm not going to discount this game because of it. It's still solid as hell. Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga got a remake, which makes every game in the series available on 3DS at long last, though people didn't really care enough because... yeah, that thing. Also, Bowser's Inside Story and Kirby's Epic Yarn were the last games Nintendo published for the thing in 2019? Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it.
I'd even go as far to say that this thing has a lot more personality than what we get afterwards. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the Nintendo Switch, but comparing the two, there's not really a lot of competition.
The 3DS got folders, themes, and badges to personalize your portable experience. Hell, the folders were a great way to organize all your digital goods, which is something other consoles just refuse to do, apparently. And while themes aren't necessarily worth much to some, it made looking at the home menu a lot more fun, especially when each theme had their own sound effects and animations. Seeing the Switch on its 4th year still rocking the black and white themes with no way to create folders, or at the very least create columns, which is also an option the 3DS had. I get that games were a main focus for the Switch, but if the 3DS told me anything, you can have the games while also giving us other software to keep us busy. And not just the stuff I talked about, there's still no Netflix on Switch, but the 3DS had it and it worked fine. Nintendo, what the hell? You have Funimation, Hulu, which is just worse by comparison. And why is there no Street Pass on the thing? I get some people are going to have the Switch in docked mode exclusively, but this was such a great distraction. And by the way, there are no other built-in apps for the thing. No face raider substitute. Yeah, that was creepy, and the Switch has no camera of any kind, but a free built-in game at launch would have been nice. I'm sure that 1-2 Switch would have been better like that, instead of selling it separately for $50. That was stupid.
But I talked about this thing long enough, and thank you guys for watching me spew out a lot of random crap about this adorable little thing. But before we go, let's talk real quick about the top 10 games I loved on this console. What I said was pretty quick.